Hello children, so welcome to our geography class. Let us continue with the questions that we were already doing the previous day. So in the previous day we had done some of the questions, and I had discussed about what is a geosyncline and why this Himalayas have so many folds. So this I discussed after doing some question. Now here one thing children, some of you might be finding that some questions are extra. We are doing some extra questions also. So it does not matter if you learn more. In fact, I'm doing from previous edition. I'm having a book of previous edition, so the number of questions are more. So whatever may be the number of questions children, you can always take it down, so it will be helpful to you in some way or the other. So we will continue first with the differences, and then we will go to the some important points, or some important topics are there which you need to understand better. Children, if you remember, we had already started doing the differences, and we have done one difference, that is the difference between converging and diverging tectonic plates. Our second difference is difference between Bhangar and Khadar. So again we will divide it in this way. So here we have this Bhangar. The first point is belt of old alluvium, and in case of Khadar it is belt of new alluvium. The second point is occupies the higher parts of floodplain. So the second point again, Bhangar occupies the higher parts of floodplain. If you remember the PPT that I had shown, so there also it was given that just beside the Tarai belt is the Bhabar belt, and yes, on the Himalayan side. But this side towards northern plain, beside the Tarai belt is the Bhangar belt, and beside the Bhangar belt was the Khadar belt towards the northern plain. So in Bhangar occupies the higher parts of floodplain, and that side occupies the low-lying areas of floodplain. So again I am repeating, occupies the low-lying areas of floodplain. So coming to the third point, do not receive the flood water and fresh alluvial deposit. So why they do not receive the flood water? Because they occupy the higher parts of floodplain. Again I am repeating, do not receive the flood water and fresh alluvial deposit. But this side, our Khadar is low-lying areas of the northern plain, so the Khadar receives the flood water and fresh alluvial deposits. Every time, children, when the flood water will recede, when the flood water will no longer be there, we will always find a fresh deposit of alluvial. Always the flood water leave back a fresh deposit of alluvial. So flood, no doubt it creates lot of destruction, but it always freshens up the soil and always leaves a new deposit of alluvium. Now coming to the fourth point, in case of Bhangar, low fertility and requires heavy manuring. Now why this fertility is low? This fertility is low because it is not receiving fresh alluvial deposit, and so to increase the fertility, the farmers use large scale manuring. So they use chemical fertilizers, they apply chemical fertilizers to increase the soil fertility. But in case of Khadar, it is receiving fresh deposits of alluvium. So this side we have highly fertile and do not require much manuring. So although the farmers here also they apply too much of chemical fertilizers, but in reality this Khadar soil is much more fertile and do not require much manuring. Now in case of fifth point, here the soil has more sand particles with conquered nodules because it is not receiving any fresh alluvium, so it is much more containing sand particles and conquered nodules. It is much more drier in nature. And this side we have the soil is clay in nature and do not contain any conquer nodules. So there is no conquer nodules in case of our Khadar soil. The soil is clay in nature and do not contain any conquer nodules. So this much is the difference between the Bhangar and Khadar. I am repeating again, children. So Bhangar is built of old alluvium, Khadar is built of new alluvium. Then Bhangar occupies the higher parts of floodplain, whereas Khadar occupies the low-lying areas of floodplain. The Bhangar do not receive the flood water and fresh alluvial deposit, whereas Khadar receives the flood water and fresh alluvial deposits. In case of Bhangar, it is low in fertility and requires heavy manuring. In case of Khadar, highly fertile and do not require much manuring. Now, the soil in case of Bhangar, the soil has more sand particles with conquered nodules, where in this case, the soil is clay in nature and do not contain any conquer nodules. Now children, the next question is difference between eastern and western Ghats. Now if you remember children, when we were doing the Peninsular Plateau, at that time I have given you this difference, that is difference between Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. But still, just let me go through the points again, so that if you have missed out the points anyway, we can easily write them down. So if you remember children, our first point of Western Ghat was stretches from Tapi river to Kanyakumari, and this side it was stretches from Mahanadi valley to the Nilgiris in the south. Now this side, the second point was average width 50 to 80 kilometer, and this side average width 100 to 200 kilometer. The third difference was average elevation 900 to 1600 meters. Elevation children means the height, and this side average elevation 600 meter above sea level, that is the average elevation. Now next point, continuous range and can be crossed only through few passes, and this side comprises of discontinuous and low hills. Next point, most peninsular rivers have their origin here, and this side no. Then the next point was acts as an orographic barrier to southwest monsoons coming from Arabian Sea and give heavy rainfall. And this side we have, as it lies parallel to the monsoon coming from Bay of Bengal, it does not cause much rain during rainy or the monsoon season. The other term that we use for the rainy season is the monsoon season. Now next I have written highest peaks, Anaimudi in Annamalai, Dodabetta in Nilgiri. However, children, name of the peaks is not the difference. Difference always must be of features or characteristics. Then highest peak here Jindagada and Mahendragiri. Now one thing children I would like to point out, while writing the difference, you cannot write the names of the peaks as the difference. Like here, although I have written, but there are many other points, so you can exclude that point in difference. But children, always you must remember, names cannot be difference. The features are always the difference, but not the names. So here we have the difference between the Western Ghats and the Eastern Ghats. Now we will come to the next question, that is, describe how the Himalayas were formed, and after that I will discuss two important points. One is the orographic barrier, the other one is riverine islands. Now the next question children, describe how the Himalayas were formed. We will describe it point wise in stages. So in the first point children, we will write the rising convectional currents. The rising convectional currents had split the crust into several pieces. Now children, where from this convectional currents came? These convectional currents were formed in the mantle layer, because we all know that as we go deeper into the earth as mantle layers, the heat increases, and this heat produces the convectional current, which moves in circular motion up and down. For example children, suppose if you are heating a pan of water, you will find after it reaches the boiling temperature, it will just make bubbles and move up and down, up and down. So similarly in the mantle layer also the same thing happens. The rising convectional currents, the convectional current rises because of heating and it pushes from below, and because of this pushing, the areas where it is weaker in the earth crust, it splits, it's break into pieces. So the rising convectional currents had split the crust into several pieces. Second point, these pieces were drifting over the asthenosphere. So I had told you before children, asthenosphere is the layer that lies between mantle and crust. So because this asthenosphere layer is not solid, it is jelly like, so the pieces of the crust simply slips over the asthenosphere. So these pieces were drifting over the asthenosphere. The third point, the Indo-Australian plate also splitted from the Gondwana land. Do you all remember children that Angara land and Gondwana land are the two parts of the Pangaea? The Angara land constitutes the northern continents, the Gondwana land constitutes the southern continents. So the Indo-Australian plate also splitted from the Gondwana land and slowly moved northwards. Okay. Now coming to the fourth point, here just south of Eurasian plate, so the Eurasian plate was there in the Angara land portion, so it was stable, it was not moving, it was the Indo-Australian plate which was moving. So here just south of Eurasian plate was a huge geosyncline occupied by the Tethys Sea. So the geosyncline, previous day I had shown you what is a geosyncline. So below this level of water was the geosyncline. So the name of the sea was Tethys Sea, and below Tethys Sea was this huge geosyncline. So geosyncline is the accumulation of the sediments in folded form. I had shown you the previous day, you should remember. As the Indo-Australian plate collided with the Eurasian plate, the sediments of the Tethys geosyncline got further compressed and rose up to form the Himalayan mountains. So I am reading again. The first point is the rising convectional currents had splitted the crust into several pieces. Second point, the pieces were drifting over the asthenosphere. The third point, the Indo-Australian plate also splitted from the Gondwana land and slowly moved northward. Here, the fourth point here, just south of Eurasian plate was a huge geosyncline occupied by the Tethys Sea. As the Indo-Australian plate collided with the Eurasian plate, the sediments of the Tethys geosyncline got further compressed and rose up to form the Himalayan mountains. So this will be the answer of how the Himalayas were formed. Now children, let me discuss how a riverine island is formed. Now from the term itself, riverine, you can see that it is within the river. The term is riverine. That means it relates to the river. Okay? An island, you all know, islands are areas which are surrounded by water. There must be water on all sides. Here also there is water. Here also there is water. So there must be water on all sides. Then only it can become an island. Now these riverine islands are always formed due to deposition by the river. So what thing the river deposits? The river comes down the mountain. It brings different materials from the mountain, and here children, there is no deposition of material because the river is just removing the material. It is eroding the material. But once it enters the plain, the speed of the river slows down. The river becomes sluggish in nature because the land is flat. Remember children, this is the northern plain. The land is flat. So in the plain area, the speed of the river slows down, and all the heavy material which the river cannot carry forward, it starts dumping, it starts depositing, and this deposition leads to the formation of islands. Now this material also gets eroded by the water of the river, and during the process of erosion it breaks down. So here also the water is constantly hitting them, so the materials further breaks down and become finer. So this deposition starts from the second stage itself, forming islands. Now as the river proceeds further downstream, as the river moves forward, at a certain point what happens? There is no erosion, but all the materials get deposited. All these dots that you are seeing, I have drawn here, all these are the deposited material. Now these materials are deposited to such an extent that the river cannot flow forward. The channel is blocked. Now at this stage the water have to flow. Otherwise what will happen? It will just form swamps and marshes. The water will spread on the surface and form a marshy land, swampy land covered with just water. So the water has to forcefully make way. So what it does, it forms numerous channels, narrow channels it forms, and the water moves through these channels and reaches the sea. So these channels are known as distributaries, and the point where the river starts dividing into these channels, river starts dividing into distributaries. Here is the last stage of the river, and it is this stage where it is known as delta. Now children, you will find delta is formed along our eastern coastal plain, but there is no delta formation along the western coastal plain because the rivers come down the mountain, that is the Western Ghats, and join the sea, Arabian Sea directly. There is no time for flowing a long distance and then joining the sea. Always remember, for the formation of delta, the river has to cover a long distance. It starts depositing slowly, deposition increases. The rate of deposition increases to such an extent that the river has to divide into channels forming distributaries, and where the distributary formation starts, the delta formation also starts, and this is the third stage of a river. This was the second stage of the river where just the islands were formed. So the islands are the depositional feature of the river. Once the river enters the plain, the depositional walk starts, and this is the second stage of the deposition by the river, and this is the second stage of the river where deposition walk by the river continues, giving rise to riverine islands. So I hope children I am clear to you all. We have done just 3 questions. Complete these questions, and next day again I will do few questions and I will explain again few such features in details. Thank you children. Have a good day.